Hello everyone, today is Tuesday, July 30th, I believe is the date, and I wanted to give everybody a garden update. I haven't done one for a little while, a week or so. I'm not going to touch base on everything because there's a lot of stuff that's being taken over by weeds or aren't growing. I'll touch on the things that are growing well and my thoughts and what have you, so let's get started. Basically everything up here is the same. I will go real quick over to the onions to show you that. One interesting fact that I found there is garlic in here, and by the size of the stems, I didn't think it was doing anything. It looked a lot better last year, even though I got the garlic cloves from the same supplier. But lo and behold, I dug one up yesterday. It had a nice 1.5 inch diameter clove on there. So I guess garlic forms more under the ground than onions. Because if you come over to the onions, our day length has definitely changed, and our onions are starting to bulb up. I got a nice one down in there. That's probably the biggest one. That's probably maybe a 3.5 inch diameter onion. Again, none of these will be picked for quite some time. It's still very, very early, but you can kind of tell. I mean, yes, there are weeds here and all that, and you know how that goes. But they're all starting to bulb up, and I think I'm going to get some nice onions out of this. I'll probably chop some up, cut some up, freeze them, and then the rest I'll put them in cold storage in the basement. Here's I have my pepper and tomato row with a few eggplant. The eggplant are real compact, no flowers yet, no fruit. My 3 Caribbean red, or Caribbean red hot peppers, they're starting to grow. This one, they're starting to get a lot bushier, but there's no height, there's no flowers, there's no peppers. The rest of my peppers, all the bell peppers, I'm not sure if I have some they're called Cubanella, or I think they're called chili. I'm not sure exactly the brand or the variety offhand. I'll have to get that for you. But the bell peppers, like anything besides the cayenne peppers and the Hungarian wax, they're not flowering, they're not fruiting. They are growing. I have a couple of them down here that are growing quite well. I actually weeded this the other day, so they look tons better. And I have a couple peppers here that are growing. This is a cayenne pepper. These are cayennes in here, the hotter peppers. And again, I've never had peppers even grow this tall. I know peppers are more of a later season, very hot variety, or hot type of crop. However, up here, the past few days in the morning, the temperatures have been in the way low 50s. Like, in the 50s in the end of July. And that, the temperature should be, well 70, 80 degrees during the day, but we're lucky if we even reach 65. I'm quite nervous about that. Because of how late the spring was and all that, if we're actually going to get some peppers. But I mean, the pepper plants are looking promising. I mean, for all aspects of it, they look really nice. It always looks like there's some buds. I mean, there's a little bud on that one there. There's one over here, but I've seen them before. They don't flower. They grow and then they just fall off. I don't know if something's eating them. I don't think so, because there's no. If you look at all of the foliage on these, there's no bug damage. There's no insect damage. There's no critter damage. You're just I think taking their sweet time. The tomatoes, well, the tomatoes are I don't know what else to say about them except they're pretty amazing this year. I know these aren't big, but for this season, but for this type of environment up here, this type of climate, these are growing exceptionally well, exceptionally large. I couldn't be happier. Especially waiting for one of these. This is an ILDI grape tomato. And they're known to have these giant clusters. This was just getting ready to flower or starting to flower, and there's probably easily 60 flowers on that. Or even with this one, there's probably close to 80 different blooms on that. I mean, there's clusters like that all over. I have 5 of those. They're the real. I think they're considered. I'm not sure if it's like a curled potato leaf, but they all have curly leaves. Like, it's not because they're wilting. It's not because they're sick. That's just the way their leaves grow, which are fairly unique and very easy to pick out. But just look in there once, count all those blooms. I don't know if the camera picks it up that well, but there's hundreds and hundreds on these 5. I think there's 5 or maybe 6 plants. I got the other ones that are really flowering are up here. These are cherry. I'm not sure if these are the black cherry or not. I have a bunch of different cherry and grape types. But as you can see, everything's putting on. There's this little tomato down there. All varieties are putting on tomatoes except the ones up here. I have a feeling those may be the Brandywines that are a little bit later. They're not as quick to produce fruit, but I mean everything. I'm not going to go through every different variety I have, but my planting and my seeding book that I used for the past few years kind of got ruined. I had it in the basement in my grow room, and it got wet somehow, so all the pages kind of smushed together and started to mold, and then I actually found it the other day when I was looking for it. So I don't know where anything is planted here until they start actually putting on fruit. Then it's obviously very easy to tell which is planted what, but they're all in blocks. Like as you can see, the Ildi grape, which I know that's with it, they're all in a block. The San Marzanos are in a block. The Romas are in a block. Blah blah. You know, they're all in a section. There's all in a row. But I'm trying to think offhand of where some big ones are. I don't want to get into trying to find every little tomato that I have. But the tomatoes are doing very well. I couldn't be happier with them. These are the best tomatoes that I've ever grown, and you know, I don't know, that I've ever seen in the past little while in a home garden. My parents make a nice garden down home, but I bet these tomatoes are just as good as those as far as the size goes, and even though they have a little bit warmer climate. Anyway, enough about tomatoes. There's only so much you can say. Hey, tomatoes are great, and there you go. The next row over here, I'll have to walk over to the top. You can obviously see what those are, not weeds, but they are sugar snap peas. They're actually taller, the ones down the bottom. There's about a 150-foot row. They're starting to flower, starting to put on. Those are my second crop of them. I actually had a first crop, which I believe I showed you before, made out of some old tomato rings or cattle fencing, and they produced, those plants died. I feed them to the chickens. And then in throughout here, there's one there, one here, a couple there. They're sunflowers. They're a mix. I think some of these may be like the Russian giant. I don't know if they'll make a sunflower head because of how late it is in the season when they came up, but I still have high hopes that they will. The row directly across from where the peas are my Blue Lake, stringless Blue Lake pole beans. And as you can see, again, they came on late, but they're growing. I mean, this fencing here is around 5 foot at the pole, maybe even a little higher, and I got some. You know how these things grow. These things could get 8 feet high, 10 feet high. I don't have the fencing, obviously, for that, but they're starting to cover this, the crop netting up pretty well. I mean, the weeds are kind of catch up, but the weeds, I think, these variety of weeds, they're pretty much at the peak of how tall they get based on what they did last year. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to this whole thing being a mass. I mean, they're almost, you know, almost like every other one, they're climbing up. There's skip one here, here's two, skip, there's one, you know, so it's fun, but I'll definitely have some beans in the next few weeks into the fall, which is great, which is also why I like pole beans. They ain't bending over, you're not straining your back, you're not fishing for them, they'll be hanging right here, easy to see. Plus pole beans, the length of harvest is a lot longer than a bush bean. Usually bush beans, you know, the majority of them come on all at once, and then you may get a second picking out of that. But pole beans, they kind of come on sporadically, start at the bottom, go towards the top, especially because they're in a sense like an indeterminate. They keep growing until the season doesn't allow them to grow any higher, or they reach their maximum height, which again, these ones here, they met the maximum height from my fence, but they'll keep on growing. We switch right over here. Among the weeds, I have some cucumber plants. These are the ones that actually made it. Again, they're really tiny, but as you can see, there are flowers. There's a couple baby cucumbers in there. I have some Divas, I have some Calypso, I have some Marketmore 76. I think the other one is a SRM 83. Just seeds that I've gotten from people and some that I've saved for years ago. Nothing special, but I should get some cucumbers out of it this year. Maybe enough for some pickles. That'd be great. This is my weed / corn patch. Again, the corn, for all intents and purposes, or whatever the word is, the corn is looking very nice and green, very nice color. Some of them are actually starting to put a couple tassels on, and starting to form the cobs, so I may get some ears. The better ones are up here. Sorry for my shadow, it's around 7 o'clock at night, so the sun's real low in the sky. But a couple of them here, you know, these are 3-foot plants, which, I mean, that's nothing to what they should be, you know, 5-6 feet. But a couple of them, you can see right there is a tassel. And I guarantee you down in there, they're starting to put a cob on. That's how they, you know, usually once you start seeing the tassels, when the cob starts coming on, and then they work together, pollinate each other, etc., etc. So I may get some corn out of this. You know, I may give up trying to plant corn if I can't figure out how to get the weeds under control. You know, we're planting corn. You can't plant you can't put down shade cloth for that because you have to plant it, you know, with a cedar in a row. Not like a tomato or a cucumber plant or a squash, you could poke a hole and plant it. So I don't know. If I don't get anything out of it this year, I think I may scale back next year for sweet corn. Unfortunately, I may just end up doing maybe like a 10 by 10 plot, or even just like a 20 by 20 square, and you know, try to keep it really the weeds suppressed and pulled out, with lots of grass put down, and I don't know. We'll see. There's always next year. All right, down here I got some winter squash, which again, they're starting to put flowers on. I don't know if it's going to be too late for the winter squash to produce. I mean, we have all of August, we have all of September. You know, once September hits, it starts getting colder, even colder than it is now, and then we're into October, so I don't know. The other ones here, I have every other one is a zucchini. Zucchini or a summer squash. They're starting to flower, starting to put on. You can see them down there. That's a green straight neck, which is what the variegated leaves are. And then the other ones are crookneck yellow. I have quite a nice, decent sized row. I mean, once they were transplanted and the grass was put down and they were given a bit of even a little bit of fertilizer. I'm not sure if I even gave them any fertilizer. They really started taking off. They love the hot weather to start growing. And of course, when I planned to retransplant them from the other location, it took them a few days, but then they started growing like crazy. Again, here's a winter squash. They're starting to vine. This is the Waltham, I think it is, butternut squash. We'll see if I get anything. But I'll definitely get some zucchini, maybe enough to make some relish for my mom, because no one else here really likes zucchini. I know some of the borders here would like some. We'll switch right over to here, to my pumpkin row. Hopefully the sun isn't too bright, it's bright in my eyes. But the pumpkin row is all the way down to the bottom. And again, the pumpkins, I think I'll make some pumpkins. The plants are getting quite big. Again, these plants should have been this way probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. But as you can see down there, there's a female starting to open a flower. There's some males starting to open. There's tons of flowers, tons of blossoms. And then some of the varieties down here, you can see they're already starting to vine out. So I think as long as the weather holds up a bit, I'll get some production out of these pumpkins.